Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. The Democrat track record and agenda on crime has been an utter failure. It's been a complete disaster, and we've witnessed it. But you know, the context in which we speak about it, this idea that their track record has been a failure, what if I told you that that's the wrong outlook? It's not that their track record was a failure, it's that their track record is a failure, and it seems as though they're just getting started. You know, we've been talking about this for years now. They told us that bail reform laws would make things more fair, more equitable. It didn't. It simply made the streets more dangerous. They told us that criminal justice reform would fix the root causes, but instead, it gave us skyrocketing murders, an epidemic of drug overdoses, and open use and substance abuse in public spaces, destroying the livability in American cities. They also said that they were going to focus less on punishment and more on rehabilitation. But what we saw was an epidemic of recidivism, repeat offenders back on the streets to victimize the innocent over and over again, entire neighborhoods held hostage by violent degenerates. That's what the Democrats have accomplished, basically the opposite of everything they told us. That's been the track record, and now I'm telling you that nightmare, what they've enacted so far, seems as though it wasn't even the full rollout. That was Democrats just getting warmed up, because now Democrats in big cities are taking it to a whole new level of insanity by implementing programs and policies that will now be releasing dangerous criminals early in mass. It seems as though they've learned absolutely nothing, and things are likely to now get a whole lot worse. Let me show you guys exactly what's going on here. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Alright folks, so let's first start off in California. So we're now learning that these genius Democrats in California are passing a bill that would force the early release of convicted felons in the state. And we're not talking about felons who committed nonviolent offenses, white-collar crimes, stuff like that. We're talking about the absolute worst of the worst. Just take a look at this.
It's my understanding in this bill, using indeterminate sentences, so life in prison sentences, are given out only for very serious crimes. Is it right to say that murder would be one of those crimes?
It could be.
How about rape? Sexual assault?
It could be.
What about child molestation or child sex trafficking?
I suppose they could be. But again, these will all go through the parole board. Victims would have the opportunity to speak at the parole board. You know, it would go through the ordinary process that every other case goes through and has gone through. And these are folks that have been deemed eligible for release based upon the rehabilitative work.
Let me just clarify. If this bill is passed, it would help convicted felons who engage in murder, rape, and even child sex trafficking to get out of jail sooner than if it wasn't passed. Is that correct?
I'm not sure that all those crimes are covered here, but I will point out again that it has been the practice of CDCR for several years to allow people to participate in rehabilitative programming, which encourages not only their rehabilitation, but greater safety to the community and a more peaceful environment within the correction systems, greater safety for staff and other people who are incarcerated. In each case, the court said the person was sentenced to 7 to life or 25 to life. Then it is their job to demonstrate that they are fully rehabilitated to the board, who is a very conservative body. Then their recommendations are reviewed by the governor's office. Only those people would be allowed to be released under this bill.
This is soft on crime policies on steroids. It's like they've learned absolutely nothing from San Francisco's collapse or the lawlessness that we've seen in Los Angeles. These are the same people who thought that it would be no big deal to lay off the fentanyl dealers, to just let them conduct their business in open, to decriminalize theft and lay off the armed robbers, give them a slap on the wrist and let them right back on the streets. They thought it would make things better. Obviously it didn't. We saw an epidemic of crime in California. And now they're saying, well, you know what? Now it's not just for the fentanyl dealers and not just for the armed robbers. No, we're extending our compassion to murderers, rapists, and child abusers. It's insane. Who is voting for this crap? But of course, the insanity doesn't just end there. It's not just in California. We can go to Minnesota as well, where it seems as though Governor Tim Tampon Walz is running a very similar playbook. Just take a look at this report.
You know, we first met a few years ago after you were violently carjacked, a terrible story, in a Target parking lot in the Twin Cities.
So I was just quickly checking my phone, see what time it is, and out of nowhere, right up to me and held a gun right between my eyes to my head. Took my car and assaulted me, and yeah.
The suspect, Dustin Michael McLeod is his name. He was a repeat offender. He was charged with aggravated first-degree robbery for what happened to you. He's been sentenced to serve 6 years in prison after that attack. But then you receive this letter pretty recently here from the Minnesota Department of Corrections.
It just says the Minnesota Rehabilitation and Reinvestment Act, the MRRA, is a new law that will be implemented In 2025, MRRA allows the individuals incarcerated in Minnesota DOC prison facilities to earn a reduction in the time served and allows individuals on supervision to earn abatement of their supervision, meaning moving off active supervision.
MRRA, as it's known, it was passed in 2023, basically moves away from how much time people spend in prison to how people spend their time in prison. It offers incentives for those who participate in rehabilitation programs, which could lead to early release. So even though McLeod pled guilty to aggravated robbery in 2021, he was sentenced to more than 6 years in prison. You've since now learned that he could be out on supervised release this summer, serving about 4 years in total. During the current legislative session, Minnesota Republicans, they've been working to fix the MRRA, which they've called a get out of jail free program. According to the author of the bill, who is trying to fix this, right now 92% of Minnesota's prisoners could be eligible for early release.
We've got the Minnesota Rehabilitation and Reinvestment Act that could literally release up to 92% of the state's prison population. Do you know how absurd that is? Now, of course, that's not to say that 92% are going to be released early. It's going to be done on a case-by-case basis, but the fact that 92% of people who are sitting behind bars are eligible pretty much tells you all that you need to know. We're not talking about people who got arrested for selling a little bit of dope. We're talking the most violent of offenders. And just to make it even more grotesque, you've now got victims across the state that are receiving letters informing them that the person who destroyed their life is now likely to be let loose back on the streets under some new Safer Minnesota reform nonsense. Could you imagine getting a letter telling you that your attacker is now being released early because he completed some bogus seminar course? Well, this is exactly what's happening in Minnesota. It's absolute clown world. Violent criminals back on the streets. And actually, speaking of that, we got a report here from Fox News that frankly should send shivers down your spine. Look at this.
It was November 2021, a fiery collision on an Orange County freeway. A young couple dead, and the driver who crashed into them, a twice-deported illegal alien from Mexico with multiple felonies, in custody for being drunk, high, and speeding at nearly 100 miles per hour.
I get a knock on the door, and there's 2 police officers.
The pain written all over the face of Pavel Osokin, as he recalls being told his son Nikolai and his 19-year-old girlfriend Anya Varfolomeev, friends since they were kids, were gone.
They told me there was a horrible incident.
Anya's father, Anatoly, got a similar knock on the door that night.
My wife came downstairs and she was screaming and cried. He said, no, 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 no.
In spring of 2022, a jury convicted Oscar Eduardo Ortega Anguiano on 2 counts of gross vehicular manslaughter while intoxicated. A judge sentenced him to 10 years. But on Easter Sunday, the family say they received this notice from the California Department of Corrections that on July 19th, he'll be getting out.
It's confusing to me. Why you give them 10 if they're going to spend 5 and then 3?
Yeah, 2 young, productive American citizens killed for nothing. And that illegal immigrant who already has been deported twice is going to be released again?
In a statement, the Department of Corrections wouldn't confirm the release, but said in part, quote, incarcerated persons may earn credits for participating in rehabilitative programming, which may move their parole dates to an earlier date.
Yep, an illegal migrant who killed 2 people in a horrific DUI crash is now being released from prison early. Right back on the streets, not deported, not sitting in prison where he belongs. No, just released back into society after serving a real tough prison sentence. He killed 2 people in a DUI as an illegal immigrant, and he served 4 years. Ooh, let me correct myself actually, 3.5 years. Not to mention he was deported from the country twice. I think the question people ought to be asking themselves is, what the hell are we doing here? Democrats continue to prioritize and favor criminals above law-abiding citizens. I can't even wrap my head around it, especially the basic logic. The idea that this is going to work after we've seen objectively that it doesn't, considering their trials over the last couple of years, and just understanding the basic facts of recidivism rates, 80% of these people go right back after committing crimes. You know, here's a great example of that.
A man beats an elderly victim to the ground for trying to get into his car in December 2023 at La Michicana food store in North Houston. That victim's family says he was simply confused because he has Alzheimer's. The man in the red here is Trayvon Lockridge. He was arrested, but his bond was then lowered and he posted it.
And of course he gets out, and he's out, and you know, now he's wanted again.
wanted for aggravated assault with a deadly weapon in a shooting.
Violent criminal beats an elderly man in an aggravated robbery, then has a woke judge reduce his bond, show him mercy and empathy, and then he goes right back on the streets and does it again to an elderly woman. I mean, come on. This endless empathy for criminals has got to stop, and the prioritizing of law-abiding citizens has got to be put at the top of the priority list. It's not reform, it's not compassion, it's naivete and incompetence. That's what it really is. And frankly, you might even argue it's cruelty masked as compassion. And I'll tell you, what it seems like to me is that the American people are sick of paying the price. Anyways, that's pretty much what I got for you guys on this one. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.